The entire internet blasted her for abandoning her father and child. I remained silent, not uttering a single word. The Hong Kong press captured footage of her being shoved out of the door. I watched coldly. My father said little Sticky Rice could just be taken care of by our side of the family. I never offered a single word of explanation. I let the world's gossip pelt her. It was because I hated Yang Mi's selfishness and cold-heartedness. I hated it for the past 8 years. Every time I remembered, it was like swallowing shards of glass. Not a sharp, sudden sting, but a dull, aching pain. Sometimes, a pain so intense it turned into numbness. It gets stuck in the throat, I can't spit it out, and I can't swallow it down. At that wedding in Bali years ago, she held my hand and said she would love me without regret. The aftertaste of that love was long ago worn down by this reality until only indifference remained. I even radically thought she deserved it. From a petite, gentle girl by my side, she transformed into someone whose eyes only saw wagers. She became the desperate third lady consumed by contracts and scripts. A rainy night in Hong Kong in 2015 was the most exhausting. I had just finished work with the film crew and returned home. When I opened the door, the hallway light was still on. Yang Mi was fast asleep, curled up on the sofa. Her hand was still tightly gripping half of a parenting notebook. A trail of undried tears still lingered on her eyelashes. On the table sat a bowl of congee that had gone stone cold, but the soup in the thermos was still warm. Beside it was a note: Sticky Rice woke up 3 times tonight. She drank 120 milliliters of milk. Remember to give her the vitamin D supplement. Love, me. But at that moment, my mind was entirely occupied by the 3 endorsement contracts she had just accepted. The moment I opened my mouth, I brought up an interview quote: her value at home is taking care of the child. I didn't see the bloodshot streaks in her eyes. I didn't notice the crumpled script in her suitcase. I didn't understand the tightly clenched fist as she turned her back to leave. That was when she had just rushed back from the countryside of Linai, with dirt still under her fingernails from filming Shin Wan Woo. In 2016, the late-night script reading incident erupted. She stood before the red carpet in a high-end gown, surrounded by reporters with no way out. In front of the cameras, she still smiled perfectly, saying, "I trust Kiwi." But backstage, I saw her secretly clenching her palms so hard her knuckles turned white. Afterward, I merely joked casually on a show that we were just rehearsing the script, never mentioning that she had sent me 27 messages that night. The final message was, "Don't worry, I will shoulder this." At the time, I resented her for being too strong. I blamed her for prioritizing her career over family, forgetting that when she signed that 310 million yuan wager agreement, her eyes were red. She told me she wanted to build up a lifetime of security for Sticky Rice. In 2018, the divorce. On the day of the signing, she only brought a canvas bag. Inside was a photo of little Sticky Rice at 100 days old. Her pen hesitated for a moment, then she added, "Raise her together. Do not disclose any information about the child." But I responded with a cold smirk, "You're so busy, you probably won't even have time to visit her." She didn't argue. She just smoothed out the photo and placed it gently on the table. The sunlight streaming through the curtains hit her face. I couldn't tell if that was tears or just reflected sunlight. Last week, while clearing out Sticky Rice's old things, a metal box fell from deep within the wardrobe. It was the key she had personally locked away at our wedding. Inside were little Sticky Rice's first hair clippings. When I opened it, the scent of mothballs hit my nose. There were no jewels or expensive ornaments. Only a stack of yellowed papers. On top were lines written in her handwriting. The script was messy but resolute. "Kiwi, the pressure of the wager agreement is too great. I have to give it my all. Otherwise, the studio will go bankrupt. Our whole family will be burdened with debt." Tucked in the middle was a hospital diagnosis from 2017, neurasthenia, rest required. On the back was a drawing she made of little Sticky Rice with a caption, "Daughter called for mama today." Too bad I'm with the film crew. At the very bottom was a flight stub. Sticky Rice's 5th birthday in 2019. Flying from Beijing to Hong Kong. The departure time was 3 a.m. The memo read, "Bring the strawberry cake she loves most." At the bottom of the metal box was my father's notebook, containing entries he had written over the last few years. March 12, Xiaomi arrived late at night. Sticky Rice was fast asleep. She sat by the bed for a full hour. June 1st, she hid behind a tree at the school to watch Sticky Rice perform. She left in a hurry after being spotted by reporters. October 5th, sent over the comic book Sticky Rice likes. With a note, "Don't let her know I came." It turns out those rumors about preventing her from visiting that year were actually a silent understanding between us. She was afraid the media would swarm and frighten the child. I was afraid a public outcry would damage her career. But in that silence, we built a thick wall, pushing each other to opposite ends of resentment. In front of the camera, I always said Sticky Rice was being very well cared for by us. Behind the camera, I often saw the flat shoe she left on the porch. She never wore high heels when she visited for fear of waking the child. In public, I joked that she lacked knowledge. In private, I cherished the parenting diary she wrote while filming, which detailed exactly what Sticky Rice was allergic to in her daily habits. Outwardly, we were said to be like strangers, yet every year on Sticky Rice's birthday, she would send gifts to my company early. The note, purchased according to her height this year. In the second year after the divorce, while filming in the mainland, I ran into her assistant. Only then did I learn that she took those commercial scripts because my investments had suffered heavy losses. She had quietly paid off my debts. Only then did I learn that while she was living in the countryside to research her role, she had to video call Sticky Rice every day, yet she never let the child see how dilapidated the mud house was. Only then did I learn that on the day she won the Best Actress award, she sent me a message from backstage, "Sticky Rice's piano class, please pay a little more attention to it." But she deleted it before I could reply. It turns out that so-called selfishness was her choosing to carry a bad reputation rather than dragging me and our child into the storms of the business world. That so-called indifference was her swallowing all her grievances just to leave us with kindness. The other day in Canada, while skiing with Sticky Rice, she suddenly pointed to 2 rows of footprints in the snow and said, "Look, Daddy. It's like you and Mommy. Even though you're walking 2 different paths, you're both heading toward me." At that moment, I suddenly understood. Marriage is never a clear-cut battle of black and white. The parent-child relationship is not a shackle. That year, I resented her absence while forgetting she was protecting the child in a different way. She blamed me for not understanding her, yet she understood my wish for stability. Ultimately, we are 2 different kinds of people. She is like a wild horse, always wanting to run toward the horizon, seeking her self-worth in her career. I am like an old pine tree, content to hold on to my own piece of the sky, savoring the quiet years beside our child. Divorce wasn't the end, it was the clumsiest way we used to fulfill each other's needs. She shines brilliantly on the screen, I quietly protect our child in everyday life. And little Sticky Rice remains the warmest thread connecting us. Now, opening that metal box once more, the papers inside have yellowed, but the warmth in those written lines remains intact. It turns out the deepest love isn't clinging to each other day and night, but knowing how to respect the other's choices. On our separate orbits, we quietly guard the same lingering concern. The truth of marriage is never perfect harmony, but the willingness to leave a sunny sky for the other even after parting. The truth of kinship is not possession or binding, but letting a child know that whether parents are together or not, love is always present. Through the ups and downs and the deep scars of a broken marriage, we realize that the truth never lies merely on the surface of gossip or cold press photos. The greatest lesson each person must take to heart is empathy and compassion for one's partner, even when love no longer shares the same path. Education on family bonds isn't just about teaching children how to love, It's about how adults treat each other with kindness after a fallout. Sometimes, silence isn't heartlessness, and leaving isn't necessarily shirking responsibility. It can be a silent form of protection, a noble sacrifice that an oversized ego accidentally obscured. Life reminds us that in any relationship, communication and sharing are always the most important bridges to prevent walls of prejudice from slowly rising. Don't wait until everything is just a yellowed keepsake in a metal box to recognize the silent efforts of the other person. Cherishing each other's individual value and respecting each other's personal ideals is the core foundation of an enduring love. Ultimately, a child's happiness doesn't just depend on whether parents are together, but on growing up in an environment where, even on two different paths, father and mother are always looking toward the child with mutual respect. That is the most beautiful human value we can leave for the next generation, learning how to let go of resentment to preserve an intact warmth for the soul. The story of silent sacrifice behind harsh contracts and biting public criticism leaves us with much to reflect upon. Perhaps, in this life, the hardest thing is not loving one another, but understanding each other's private struggles even when no longer walking together. If this story touched a corner of your soul or gave you a different perspective on grace within family ties, don't forget to leave a comment and share your feelings. Your opinions are the motivation for me to continue seeking and retelling these deeply human narratives. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next secrets of the volatile entertainment world. Thank you for listening and being with Cbiz Flash Alerts.